poor girl helps fix a Mustang. But when the millionaire sees her ring, he falls to his knees. They called it a coincidence. A wealthy man stranded in the wrong part of town, a little girl with a toolbox, and a ring that should have been buried with the past. But what Jack Reynolds discovered that day wasn't a coincidence. It was the unraveling of a lie so carefully built that no one dared to question it. Until now. Before we start the story, write in the comments from which part of the world you're watching today. It started with smoke, thick, gray, unwelcome, curling out from under the hood of a car that had no business being in that part of town. Jack Reynolds muttered a curse under his breath and cut the engine. The vintage Mustang, lovingly restored and regularly serviced, now sat lifeless on the side of a cracked road that ran through a neighborhood most people like him pretended didn't exist. Luxury didn't belong here. Neither did he. He stepped out, loosened his tie, and opened the hood. Steam hissed. He had no idea what he was looking at. "Wires," a small voice said. "You fried your wires." Jack turned sharply. A girl, maybe 9, maybe 10, stood a few steps away. Dirty sneakers, jeans with a rip at the knee, a t-shirt 2 sizes too big, and eyes that didn't blink. "I can fix it," she said, lifting a small, rusted toolbox. "If you want." Jack blinked. "You?" She shrugged. "I fix worse." He studied her. "You know engines?" "Better than school," she replied, stepping forward before he could say yes. "Do you have a flathead?" He handed her one from his emergency kit. She leaned over the engine, brow furrowed, lips pressed in concentration. Her hands were small, but precise, like she'd done this before. Not once, not twice. Often. He noticed her ring only when the sun hit it directly. A ruby, oval, deep red, set in a thin gold band. Elegant, almost antique. His chest tightened. He had seen that ring before. 15 years ago he'd given it to his younger sister, Lily, on her 6th birthday. She'd danced around the room with it, holding it high like a treasure. But Lily had died. Or so he'd been told. "Where did you get that ring?" he asked. She paused but didn't look up. "Had it as long as I can remember." Jack crouched beside her. "What's your name?" "Emily," she said. "Emily Grace." "Why?" He didn't answer. The engine coughed, sputtered, then hummed to life. Emily stepped back, dusted her hands on her jeans. Jack stared. "You're amazing," he said quietly. She tilted her head. "It's just wires." But Jack wasn't looking at the engine. He was looking at her face, the shape of her chin, the curl in her dark hair, and that tiny scar under her left ear. The same scar Lily got falling off a bike when they were kids. "You live around here?" he asked. "With Matthew," she said. "He's my dad." "Your real dad?" She hesitated. "Don't know. He found me at a shelter when I was little. I don't remember before that." Jack felt cold. "How long ago?" Emily counted silently. 7 years ago, maybe. I was little. They didn't have records. Just called me Elizabeth. But I didn't like it. Elizabeth. Lily's middle name. He exhaled slowly, forcing calm. "Emily, do you ever have dreams that feel real?" She looked at him sharply. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious." She nodded. "Sometimes. A lady in white. She sings to me. Same song, always. I don't know the words, but I know it's real." Jack swallowed hard. "A lullaby?" "Yeah," she said, and then began to hum. His hands trembled. That melody, soft, slow, a minor key, had haunted his dreams too. Their mother sang it when they were small, but only to Lily, never to him. He didn't know what scared him more, the ring, the scar, the song, or the feeling that somehow, impossibly, she was who he thought. Jack looked at the girl. Emily. "Can I talk to Matthew?" She narrowed her eyes. "You think I stole the ring?" "No," he said honestly. "I think it was stolen from you." A silence stretched between them. Then she shrugged. "Matthew's shop is 3 blocks that way. He's fixing a Buick." Jack reached for his keys, then stopped. "You want a ride?" She raised an eyebrow. "You sure your car's fixed?" He smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "Only because you're better than my mechanic." As she climbed into the passenger seat, Jack felt the weight of old questions rise to the surface. He'd buried them long ago, in obedience, in fear, in wealth. But the past doesn't stay buried forever. Not when it wears a ruby ring, and not when it hums your mother's lullaby. The garage was nothing more than a converted shed with 2 open bays and a dirt-streaked sign that read, "Matt's Auto." The place smelled like grease, sweat, and something vaguely metallic. Honest work, Jack thought, a world apart from glass towers and silk ties. Emily hopped out of the car before it fully stopped, darting toward a tall man in a gray t-shirt bent over a hood. He looked up at her voice and smiled. Not politely, but with warmth, like a man who'd built his entire day around hearing her speak. "Matt," Jack said quietly, watching the two. Not her father, but something close. Matthew wiped his hands on a rag and glanced at Jack with mild suspicion. He was lean, maybe mid-30s, with oil-stained fingers and kind eyes sharpened by caution. The kind of man who didn't waste words. "Who's this?" he asked Emily. "He's stuck. His car broke down. I fixed it." She beamed. Matthew's eyes landed on Jack. "That right?" Jack stepped forward. She did. Engine wiring. Took her 5 minutes. Matthew nodded, still skeptical. "So what brings you out here, mister?" "Jack Reynolds." That got a reaction. Matthew's brow lifted, but he said nothing. Everyone knew the Reynolds name. The empire built by Richard Reynolds was stitched into the skyline of the city. Real estate, logistics, banking. Jack had been its crown prince. Now he looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. "I wanted to talk," Jack said, "about Emily." Matthew's shoulders stiffened. "Why?" Jack hesitated. "Because I think she might be someone else." Matthew's tone darkened. "She's not for sale, if that's what you're sniffing around for." Jack raised his hands. "It's not like that. It's... Look, has she ever told you about dreams she has?" Matthew looked at Emily, then back at Jack. "She talks about a woman sometimes. And a song." Jack stepped closer. "Does she have a scar, just behind her left ear?" Matthew's lips parted slightly. "She does. You're really pushing it." Jack pulled out his phone, scrolled, then showed him a photo. Faded, scanned from an old family album, a little girl in a red dress, grinning, a ring on her hand, a faint scar barely visible near her ear. "Her name was Lily," Jack said. "She was my sister. 15 years ago, she vanished." Matthew stared. His hand tightened around the rag. "That looks like Emily." But she was in the system. They found her in some institution out west. "No records," Jack said. "No birth certificate. Just a name. Elizabeth." Matthew looked away. I never knew where she came from, he said after a moment. She was maybe 2, quiet, terrified of loud noises. One time I dropped a wrench. She didn't speak for 3 days. Jack's jaw clenched. Do you remember which institution? Matthew shook his head. It was unofficial. Someone at a shelter tipped me off. Said a bunch of kids were kept off books. Old money paid to keep things quiet. Jack's stomach turned. And no one looked into it? Matthew laughed bitterly. They were throwaway kids. Nobody wanted to know. Emily came back with a soda in each hand. She offered one to Jack. You okay? She asked, eyes scanning his face. He nodded slowly. I just have some questions. She sat on the hood of the Buick and started humming again. That same soft tune. Jack closed his eyes. Can you remember the words to that lullaby? Emily squinted, then began, halting. Stars above, don't drift away. Mama's near, she'll always stay. Her voice broke off. I don't know the rest, she whispered. But I know I used to. Jack sat heavily on a bench. Our mother sang that every night to Lily. Not to me, just to her. She said it was Lily's song. Emily stared. But I'm not Lily. He looked at her. What if you are? Matthew stepped between them. This isn't a game. I agree, Jack said. That's why I need proof. I have a contact, a private lab. We can run a test, DNA, quietly. No lawyers, no press. Matthew crossed his arms. And what happens if she is your sister? She won't go anywhere unless she wants to, Jack said quickly. I don't want to take her. I want to find the truth. And if she is Lily, then someone lied. To all of us. Emily watched them in silence. Finally, she slid off the hood. I'll do the test. Matthew looked down at her. You sure? She nodded. I want to know. I dream about her. About the woman. Maybe she's my mom. Jack knelt to her level. If it's true, you still get to choose your life. Emily tilted her head. Do you think people can forget being loved? Jack blinked. What? Sometimes, she said slowly. I feel like someone used to love me. A lot. But I forgot how it felt. Jack swallowed hard. Maybe that feeling is what led you to the wires today. Emily gave a tiny smile. Or maybe your car just sucks. He laughed, genuinely. Matthew smiled too, faintly. All right, Matthew said. We'll do it, but we keep this quiet. Jack nodded. Agreed. They exchanged numbers. Jack arranged for the test the next morning. As he drove away, he felt his pulse pounding, not from fear, but from something sharper. Hope. It had been buried for 15 years, but tonight it stirred again. If she was Lily, everything he believed about his family, about his father, was about to change. And if she wasn't, then he was chasing ghosts. But either way, he had to know. The test results arrived 3 days later in a sealed envelope marked confidential. Jack didn't open it at home. He couldn't. The Reynolds estate was all glass and performance, a place where everything had to appear immaculate, including the lies. Instead, he drove to a quiet park bench overlooking the city skyline. From this height, the world looked peaceful. Far below, his father's empire ticked like a machine, unaware that one misfiring gear could bring the whole thing down. He tore open the envelope. 2 names, Jack Reynolds and Emily Grace. Underneath, a percentage. 99.98% match. He stared at the number for a long time, chest tightening with every second. She wasn't just someone's child. She wasn't a distant cousin or coincidence. Emily was Lily, his sister, alive. He felt cold, then burning hot, and then shame. 15 years. 15 years of silence, distance, cowardice. He hadn't questioned what he was told, hadn't listened to his mother, hadn't tried. And now, a 9-year-old girl had fixed his car and shaken his entire world apart. He called Matthew. An hour later, they sat in the back of the garage, Emily between them, legs swinging off a workbench. Jack handed the paper to her carefully, like passing fire. She looked at it, confused. Matthew read it aloud. When he finished, Emily was quiet. Her eyes flicked to Jack. "So I was right." "Yes," Jack said softly. "You were." She blinked. "Then where were you?" Jack didn't flinch. "I believed what they told me. That Lily died in an accident. That there was a fire and nothing left. I didn't question it. I should have." Emily looked down. "And my mom?" Jack exhaled. "Still alive. But she's not well. She was never the same after you disappeared. Our father said she lost her mind. She swore someone took you. He had her committed for a while. I didn't understand back then. But I do now." Matthew clenched his jaw. "So he faked Lily's death. Why?" Jack answered too fast. "To cover something up. I don't know what yet. But it wasn't just about grief. He did something." Emily picked up the test results again. "So, who's Elizabeth?" "No one," Jack said. "A name they gave you. To erase the one you had." Matthew stood up. "So, what's next?" Jack hesitated. "I need to find proof. Real evidence. Something that connects my father to the lie. If I confront him now, he'll bury it. But if we find records, names, anything that ties him to the orphanage where Emily was hidden—" Matthew frowned. "That place shut down years ago." Jack nodded. "I know. But my mother might remember something, and there's someone else I've thought about. A nurse." Emily's voice was quiet. "A woman with a butterfly pin?" Jack turned. "What?" "I remember her. Blonde hair. She gave me candy once. Told me to be quiet. She had a pin shaped like a butterfly." Matthew met Jack's eyes. "You think she's real?" Jack pulled out his phone, tapped, scrolled, then stopped. A photo. A staff picture from an old article about the facility. A woman in a nurse's uniform, blonde, smiling. And on her collar, a butterfly pin. "Her name is Sarah Lund," Jack said. "She worked at the orphanage until it closed, then disappeared." Matthew raised an eyebrow. "How do you know that?" "I had someone do a background check last year. I didn't know why then. I do now." They agreed to drive north, 3 towns away, where Sarah had reportedly opened a small private clinic under a new name. No press, no licensing, off the books, just like the place she came from. That night, Jack sat alone in his penthouse, staring at an old photograph of Lily. She was laughing, arms thrown around a younger Jack. Their mother behind them, half in shadow. Richard Reynolds, nowhere in sight. He tried to remember what it felt like to be her brother, to be part of something real. The next morning, they arrived at the clinic. The door was unlocked. The front room smelled of disinfectant and cheap perfume. Sarah stood behind a desk, wearing the same smile from the photo, only older, more brittle. She looked up as they entered. Froze. Jack stepped forward. "Sarah Lund?" She didn't answer. "This is my sister," he said. "You knew her as Elizabeth. Her real name is Lily Reynolds." Sarah's hands trembled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "We have a DNA match, a scar, a ring, a song, and your face on file with a butterfly pin." Silence. Then she whispered, "I didn't have a choice." Emily stared at her. "You gave me away." Sarah's voice cracked. "I signed a paper. I didn't know what it meant at the time. Your father, Richard, said it was a private adoption. Said you were sick. Said a lot of things. He paid the orphanage to change records. Told us not to talk." Jack's voice was quiet. "You helped fake a child's death." Sarah sat down heavily. "He said it was better than what the press would do. He didn't want a scandal. Said he was protecting his family." Matthew looked ready to explode. He bought silence. Sarah looked at Emily. "You were always quiet. Scared. I wanted to say something, but I was 20, broke, and terrified of losing my job." Jack pulled out his phone. "I need you to say this again. On camera." She looked up, afraid. Jack's voice was cold. "You can be afraid now, or you can help undo what you helped bury." Sarah nodded slowly. Jack hit record. She began to speak. Jack had heard lies his whole life, in boardrooms, in interviews, in the steady public voice of Richard Reynolds, America's golden empire builder, but none of them compared to the lie he'd been fed as a boy, that Lily was dead. Now, with Sarah's confession recorded, her voice trembling but clear, Jack had a spark. What he needed next was fuel. That fuel came from a woman everyone had forgotten. His mother. He hadn't seen Olivia Reynolds in over a year. Her once regal presence had faded into a kind of ghostly isolation. After Lily's death, Richard claimed she'd lost her grip on reality. She was institutionalized, medicated, silenced. But Jack remembered moments that didn't match the narrative. Her quiet warnings, the fear in her eyes, the way she flinched at Richard's voice. He found her in a private home, nestled in the countryside, guarded like a secret. When Jack walked into the sunlit room, she was painting. The picture was crude, but unmistakable. A little girl in a red dress, a ruby ring on her hand, a woman standing behind her, blurred, as if fading from memory. Olivia looked up slowly. Her expression didn't change. "Jack," she said, her voice soft. "You came." "I found her mom," he said. "I found Lily." Her brush fell. She stood, hands trembling. "You're sure?" He nodded. "DNA match. Same scar, same ring, same lullaby." Tears filled her eyes. "I told him," she whispered. "I told them she was taken. I told the police. They called me unstable. Richard had me committed. Said it was grief. But I knew." "You were right," Jack said. "He did it. He buried her name, paid people to rewrite records, hid her in a facility that doesn't even exist on paper." Olivia sat down slowly. "Why now? Why did you believe me now?" He didn't answer. How could he explain that it took a little girl with an engine and a stare like steel to undo a lifetime of denial? Olivia wiped her face. "What are you going to do?" "Tell the truth," Jack said, "but I can't do it alone." She looked up at him, her eyes fierce now, awake. then I'll stand with you." He reached for her hand. For the first time in years, she let him. Later that evening, Jack gathered everyone in his apartment. Matthew, Emily, Olivia, and one more person. Victoria Lane, his fiancée, and one of the top attorneys in the city. Victoria had always suspected there was rot behind the Reynolds name. Jack had never wanted to see it. Until now. She listened carefully to the confession, the test results, the memories. "Legally, you have enough to challenge the estate," she said. "But the real play is public pressure. You go after Richard in a courtroom, he'll bury it. Go after him in front of the cameras. You force the world to look." Jack nodded. The gala. Every year, the Reynolds Foundation held a televised charity gala. Black tie, full press, an audience of millions. And every year, Richard gave a speech about family, legacy, and integrity. This year, Jack would hijack it. Victoria made the arrangements. Olivia's guardianship was quietly lifted. Sarah was granted immunity in exchange for her recorded confession and sworn affidavit. Every piece was lined up, except Emily. Jack found her sitting on his balcony, legs tucked under her, drawing. He sat beside her. She didn't look up. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," he said honestly. She kept sketching. "What if he says I'm lying?" "Then I'll tell the truth louder." Emily paused. "If I go on that stage, do I have to call you my brother?" Jack blinked. "No, not unless you want to." She looked at him. "I don't remember being Lily, but I know what I feel when I'm near you. It feels like something fits." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe that's enough." She hesitated, then said, "Okay, I'll speak." He exhaled with relief. 3 days later, the night arrived. The ballroom glittered with wealth. Cameramen circled. Politicians clinked glasses. Richard Reynolds stood on stage, delivering a flawless speech about perseverance and values. Jack waited backstage, eyes locked on his father. When Richard said the words, "And everything I've built, I built for my family," Jack stepped out. The cameras turned. Whispers rippled through the room. Richard paused. "Jack?" Jack took the microphone from its stand. "I won't let this lie go on," he said, voice steady. "I won't pretend anymore." He held up the test results. "I was told my sister died, but she didn't. She was stolen, hidden, rebranded. By this man, my father." Gasps. Security stirred. Jack raised his voice. "We have a confession from the woman who signed her death certificate. A DNA match. Medical records. Witnesses." He motioned. Emily stepped onto the stage, holding Olivia's hand. The crowd went silent. Jack crouched beside her, whispered, "You don't have to say much." Emily took the microphone. "My name is Emily Grace," she said. "But I was born Lily." She held up her hand. "I wore this ring when I was taken. They tried to erase me. But I'm still here." Her voice didn't shake. The audience erupted, some in tears, others frozen. Cameras flashed. Reporters pushed forward. Richard's face drained of color. Victoria stepped into frame, announcing that legal proceedings were underway. Olivia spoke next. "I was silenced, called delusional. But I never stopped believing my daughter was alive. Tonight, the truth speaks for itself." Jack turned to Richard, now escorted by 2 officers. The empire had cracked, but something stronger had been born. 1 year later, the sign on the rusted gate was gone. In its place, a new plaque gleamed in the sun. Lily's House, Center for Children's Healing and Advocacy. The building behind it was unrecognizable. Where broken windows once gaped, there were now bright murals. Inside, quiet rooms with warm colors, therapy circles, books, and, most importantly, people who listened. Jack stood in the entrance, watching a group of children paint on the wall. He still wore a suit, but no tie, no mask. He wasn't the heir anymore. He was something better. Useful. He heard footsteps behind him. Emily. She wore jeans and a new jacket, her favorite color, deep green. On her finger, the ruby ring caught the light, polished but untouched. She didn't hide it anymore. "Thought you had class," Jack said. "I do," she replied. "Later. I wanted to see it finished." She walked slowly through the hallway. Her drawings now adorned the staff lounge, soft watercolors, mostly skies and stars. A new one showed 4 people: herself, Jack, Matthew, and Olivia. No faces, just silhouettes under constellations. Jack followed her gaze. "That one's my favorite." Emily nodded. "Me too." She turned to him. "Do you think it's weird that I still don't remember everything?" "No," Jack said. "Memories aren't proof of who we are. You remember what mattered." She smiled. "Mom's getting better, you know." Olivia had been declared fully competent 6 months earlier. She now volunteered part-time at the center, telling stories and writing letters to families who'd lost someone. Her voice had returned. Matthew, now Emily's legal guardian, worked full-time in the auto program the center launched, teaching kids the same skills that had once saved a stranded billionaire. Richard Reynolds had been indicted. He pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including conspiracy, falsification of documents, and abuse of power. He would die in prison. The media storm had passed, but its impact hadn't. Dozens of other cases surfaced. Jack testified at every hearing. He turned down the inheritance. The board had begged him to stay. But Jack didn't want control. He wanted change. So he took the one piece of the empire his father couldn't poison: the Foundation. Under a new name, it now funded legal aid, whistleblower protection, and advocacy for institutionalized children. Emily walked beside him now, quiet. Then she asked, "Do you think I would have found you if your car hadn't broken?" Jack smiled. "I think the car broke because you were supposed to find me." She snorted. "That's cheesy." "Maybe, but I think the truth was always looking for us." They stepped outside. The sun was setting. The sky turned gold and pink. "Do you still have dreams?" Jack asked. Emily nodded. "Sometimes." "Same lullaby?" She shook her head. "No, different now. I hear her laugh. Mom's laugh. I think it's better that way." He looked at her. "Are you happy?" Emily considered this. "I'm becoming," she said. They stood together in the fading light. Above them, the stars blinked into place. Quiet, steady, distant, but not unreachable. Just like Lily had once been. Jack slipped his hands into his pockets. "Let's go home," he said. Emily nodded. "Yeah, let's go." And they walked down the hill, not as strangers bound by blood, but as family chosen by truth.